Music is either fun or funny. So either you're having fun or you're taking it so seriously that you can't even see how funny you're being. A lot of my musical roots happened when I was very young. I had my toes in the water in music with classic rock and roll through my dad. And then I got really obsessed with music when I was around 14, and I started getting into traditional country music, bluegrass and western swing. And that's when everything got really serious for me. Listening to Willie Nelson and Bob Wills, Ernest Tubb and Hank Williams, Waylon and Tom T. Hall and all that, Merle Haggard. There was one bar, Honky Tonk, down in Nashville, Robert's Western World, that is pretty much the primary and sole source of that frequency of music in Nashville still to this day. From day one to day 10,000 plus that we're at today, my dad. When I first started busking, my dad would drive me down to Broadway and stand beside me and make sure nobody took my money. And he would talk to the door guy and buy the guy a Red Bull so he'd let his son in and to come sit in on stage and play Chattahoochee by Alan Jackson. My father's role in my music was very hands-on, supportive. A lot of my technique was developed by listening to traditional country music and trying to emulate the classic Telecaster players and pedal steel players and some of the mandolin players, like not necessarily mandolin, like the Bigsby mandolin, like Tiny Moore, who played with Bob Wills, and tried emulating Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed and James Burton and Roy Nichols and Don Rich and Grady Martin. And so I was learning that information, but I was also playing in clubs where I wasn't amplified very loud, or I was also playing on the street. I developed a hybrid picking style that would allow me to accompany myself, but also include a dynamic that would help me get heard. Before I start with my guitar, I think I like to keep things very clean from the source to be just as nice as they can, just like a nice piece of nigiri sushi or a Kobe steak or something like that. Or for my vegetarian friends, some nice chickpea salad or something. And so a cable is crucial to that. And so I use Mogami cables, high frequency cables. I use them for both my amps, and I'm getting my board rewired very soon. It'll be all Mogami. We're in festival season and my board changed right before we hit the season, so it's kind of messy. Running into my guitar, this is a DGN Epoch, Dan Neefsey builds these guitars, and his dad assists him in putting together the guitars. It is my signature model with Dan, kind of like a Tele aesthetically, but it's really its own thing. It's completely hollow on the inside, so it has a nice sustain, and it gets a really old-time twangy sound. I have 3 pickups going on in here. I'm able to coil tap these into single coils that represent a early 50s Tele, typically overwound bridge and underwound neck. And then going into the middle, I have a overwound single coil. So it's actually an effective single coil. Like you can hear the single coil sound here. And it'll actually compete volume-wise with a neck pickup humbucker. Which is nice. I love traditional Teles, they're my favorite, so we had to figure out how to do a traditional 3-saddle bridge, Telecaster bridge that was able to fit a humbucker. And Van Dyke Harms makes these bridges. Fender never made any bridges like this in any of their production models since 1954. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Especially with Cosmic Country, I have to get to places where I can reach for the humbucker and get the PAF sound, but I want to still have the tonality of brass hitting my strings. And then on the back here, I have steel that the strings are running into, so you get extra twang going on. And this guitar is also 1/8 of an inch thinner and smaller all around, circumference-wise of the instrument. So it fits a little bit better in my 5'9" body. Gorgeous wood, great chatoyance on the neck here, flame maple, handpicked by Dan himself. Really nice. We use Tusk hardware for the nut and the tree string. I'm working on trying to see if I want to get a tree string going on these others. Still figuring that out. We have pick holders installed into this 3-screw, 3 being the magic number, pick guard here, single ply, nitrocellulose finish, just like a traditional telly that would have been made down in Corona back in the day, at least for that part. I know some of my friends might scoff at me by saying it's like a traditional telly, but it kind of is. I've played enough of them to know. I'm using 2 amps. I have a dry amp, mostly dry, and then I have a wet amp, and we're using spate baffles in front of them that have Maryland wool. Those are fantastic for the road. My meat amp is a 1966 Fender Pro Reverb with Weber F-150 speakers in it. I think I've had those speakers for 12 years, so they're really broken in, really nice. I use Groove Tube tubes. And then my wet amp is a Roland Jazz Chorus 40. The best wet amp in the universe is a Roland Jazz Chorus 40. And it really is nice. I love it. And we go direct with the left-right out into the house. So the more exploratory fans that come to our show can really get the most out of a stereo signal. And this just goes out to, it's kind of like 70% of the signal is just the Fender Pro Reverb. In all original caps and cloth wire, 3-prong wire going into the Fender there. Very old-timey and very traditional. So if we want to get into my board, this board's a little messy right now. It's not really reflective of my personality as a whole, but we're doing 70 shows already in not even the first 2 quarters of this year, and I'm changing things all the time, so things get a little messy. So this is essentially the dry part of my sound, and I'm using a Electro Harmonics platform for a compressor. The compressor's always on. It just allows the voice to be more of the voice that it is. And this also has a nice drive built into it. And then DGN 427 overdrive. It's kind of made to go with this guitar. This is a fuzz face that my friend Blair White, again, turned me on to. It's very musical fuzz. It's hard to get a fuzz that, I tried big muffs and I tried fuzz faces. This one has original components from all the old fuzz face models, and he put it into a box that is good for touring and also takes up less real estate on the board. This is like one of the best reverbs. This goes into the Pro Reverb. I can get 9 different reverbs out of this, but I use just 3 a night. Going into the Roland, things start to get a little strange. This is like the part of Willy Wonka where you start going down the river. I love Walrus Audio. I think they make exceptional road enduring products. This is a great tremolo. Insert beautiful music with a nice tremolo. This was the prototype for my Keeley Cosmic Country Phaser. I love Waylon and I love Ralph Mooney. So that's where a lot of that comes from. The Strymon timeline, there's about 6 banks of delays I like to use. I have an old whammy and it's kind of broken. It doesn't quite go all the way down to the octave, so I have to hold it down sometimes. And that's pretty much it. I don't really switch out a lot of guitars. I play the same guitar all night. I don't do any different tunings. I'll play the same guitar for years usually. And this is the one I'm on right now. I've just had thousands of shows, 15 years now doing that almost weekly. There's probably been about 3 months of my life since then I haven't played live, at least 5 or 6 shows a month. I have this rule with myself, which is, how much I play on stage that night, I also have to play that much off stage. So if we're doing a 3-hour show tonight, I'm gonna do 3 hours throughout the day off the stage so I can have an equilibrium of not getting too identified with my stage self. Any Cosmic Country show has a display of traditional and non-traditional approaches to guitar. I think there's a lot of variables and concepts that you could compress into the file of traditional guitar. Pentatonic scales, simple modes, triad inversions, things like that. Just rhythm. That's probably the most traditional thing that you could do as a musician is learn how to hone the powers that be within rhythm. I like guitar tones that don't necessarily, at least in modern times, sound like a guitar. Because I think the best traditional guitar tones are way behind us. The old recordings of like Hank Garland or James Burton or Don Rich on those Buck Owens records, they didn't have a lot of time to dial in tones. They just had to go play what they meant to play, get it down real fast, and you get a lot of greatness out of that. Like Leonard Bernstein says, if you want to create something great, have too many ideas in too little time to get it all together. That's great. Now, a lot of the guitar tones I hear that are trying to go for a traditional thing, you can kind of hear, you can hear the class behind it. That's all good and all. So modern stuff, I listen for things that don't really sound like a traditional guitar. I'm very pro technology, and I'm also very pro knowing your gear and you having a tone that gives you leverage to sound like yourself. Anything that allows an individual's voice to speak its truth, I am for. If you have a vision, there's a reason why, and it's up for you to figure that out, no one else. And if someone's there to help you, then good, and if they're not, that's okay. And don't let anybody deter you, and don't compromise. Can't tailor yourself to go for something that's external and outsource your validation to someone else that isn't you. You can. You have the free will to do it. I just don't suggest you do it. I don't think it's very wise. And you know what's true for you. And if you don't, then keep digging. Music is either fun or funny. So either you're having fun or you're taking it so seriously that you can't even see how funny you're being. And so you gotta have fun, and that's really hard to do sometimes. It's really quite challenging, especially when you have economic responsibilities and social responsibilities that can create tensions that tangle you up. You just have to have fun. That's what I try to center myself and stay connected to when we're playing on stage. The Cosmic Country Tour, it never ends with where we're at right now. I think this is our 72nd or 73rd show, 2024 tonight. We've been working this band for close to 3 years now. I feel like our community and our band and our crew and our team, and I'm just so grateful that we have the ability to bring these moments to people and bring beauty into their lives. Outside of having children and being a good son and a good brother, it's just the opportunity of my life that I've been waiting for.